What's the dumbest thing you believed as a kid? My brother had me convinced for a while that each person had to have a unique favorite color, and since his was blue, I had to change mine. On my first day of kindergarten, we had to introduce ourselves and say our favorite color. I was super stressed out because the kids in front of me picked the good colors, and I kinda panicked and told everyone my favorite color was gray. When I was young, my parents told me that if I kept leaving the fridge open, then I would freeze the whole world and then no one would like me. For some reason, I thought every car that was made had to do a crash test. Probably because my dad once told that our car had a very good rating in the crash test. I was amazed by the fact that all cars were repaired so well before being sold. When I was about 4, my older sister told me that since the population of Japan was so high, Japanese people slept sideways on their beds so they could fit more people on every bed. I believed it until I went to a sleepover at 13 and suggested that we sleep, Japanese style, on the bed so everyone could fit. Not sure if this was just a thing, but as a child I had some of those gooey jelly alien toys that came in plastic eggs, and the big rumor on the playground at the time was, if you put a boy alien and girl alien in the same egg and put it in the fridge, they would make a new baby alien overnight. I told my parents about it and told them I was doing it. While in bed, my parents added the extra baby alien overnight. So when I woke up and found the third alien, I lost it. Went into school and told everyone. For years I swore blind it was true and really happened. It was a very heartbreaking day when I realized what had happened. I didn't know cars have a turn signal lever, so I thought the car knew where we were going. I thought the car would use the arrows to tell my parents where to turn. My brother and I wrote letters to Santa, and our dad would open up the coal furnace door and we would throw them in the fire. We believed they would go directly to the North Pole. I thought that drinking and driving meant any drink. I often got caught doing stupid stuff when I was a young rascal. When I would get home, my dad would say a little buddy told him he seen me do such and such with the boys. Up until I was 8 or 9 maybe, I believed my father had some sort of snitch pigeon keeping an eye on me. Edit. Punctuation amendments. 2 gems from my youth. 1. I used to think my testicles were the eggs of my future children. Like, one day they would hatch and I'd have 2 kids. I thought safe sex meant someone left their clothes on. Escalator stairs were one-time use and just kinda piled up under the floor. That dinosaurs were still alive on another island, and I kept asking my mother if we could go to the island with all the dinosaurs, then she told me they were all dead. Blue fire was cold. I thought homosexuals were people who only had sex at home. You know those animatronic dinosaurs at museums? I knew they were robots, but as a child I was convinced that the robot was unaware of its animatronic status. I believed that if the robot wanted to, it could and would step over the barrier and eat me and everyone else. This fear was compounded when my dad more than once picked me up and pretended he would drop me down the other side of the barrier. That sex was literally sleeping next to one another and making moaning sounds. I heard things I wanna forget. I thought a baby just randomly appeared in a woman's womb. I stayed awake crying about it because I didn't want to become pregnant. That we had to change our names during different stages of our lives, like we have a toddler's name, a teenager's name and an adult's name. My stepdad had an old truck with 2 gas tanks that he would flip a switch to change from one to the other. He had us convinced that he would magically steal gas from other vehicles. He would tell us to pick one and we would watch the gas dial go from E to F while driving on the highway. Blew my mind. That actors /TV characters would have to come back into a studio for each rerun of the show /movie. I would always be so amazed that people would have the time to go into a room with a camera multiple times a day just so I could watch them do the same thing over and over again. Not me, but my brother was convinced for a few weeks that some cows had longer legs on one side of their body so they could stand on hills. That the gender of the baby depended on which person was trying harder during sex. That all bald men were kidnappers. No idea where it came from. I really don't think I was kidnapped as a child. But if I was, it was definitely a bald man that did it. I thought the black market was an actual market, like under a bridge or something. I believed this for longer as I want to admit. When I was younger, my dad upgraded the speaker setup for the TV to include surround sound. The rear speakers were mounted to the ceiling and were large white boxes. On the front of the speakers it had the numbers 3508. I always thought that was kind of strange until many years later I realized they were Bose speakers mounted upside down. I used to watch my dad go to the ATM, look at the receipt and get grumpy / frustrated. I knew how bank accounts and ATMs worked, but the kid logic part of my brain figured that they also kind of worked like slot machines. In that, when you conducted some transaction on them, you got that slip with 3 icons on it. If you got one with 3 cherries, for example, you would take it inside and they would deposit $50 or whatever into your account. I figured he was frustrated because he kept losing all the time. I even asked him a few times when he was looking at the receipt, "Did you win?" And he was like, "No." I thought everything contained water and could be dehydrated and turned to powder. Edit. Guys, I've never seen any Batman movies. I guess this was in an old one with Adam West, but no, I didn't see it. Please stop asking. The teachers sleep at school. That my grandma G had a glass eye, and that she lost her eye in a bar fight. No, it took me until I was 20 to discover she just had a lazy eye, and my dad and his brothers always told kids that story every holiday meetup. Before color was invented, the whole world was in black and white, not just zft. I had no idea that morning sickness was associated with pregnancy. My coach was concerned when I shrugged my shoulders and stated that's what was probably causing my sluggishness at football camp practice. That adults knew what they were doing. That dogs were boys and cats were girls. My mom told me babies came from pumpkin patches. I thought that if you eat a pumpkin you'll become pregnant. The wind was a living entity. His name was Billy and he had the face of what I think is, or is like, the Scream mask. When I was younger, our garage always had a very distinct smell. My parents told my siblings and I that the smell in our garage was the smell of burnt tires, because my dad would work on cars and dirt bikes as a hobby. Being the middle child, we always tend to find out the family secrets whether we want to or not. Fast forward to when I am 15 years old. I standing in a parking lot with my mother and 2 girls I was in acquaintance with. As we were all waiting in this parking lot for our friend who was having the quiz, I started to smell burnt tires. I said to my mom that it smelled like burnt tires. My mom and the 2 girls all started chuckling. I was confused as to what was funny and the 2 girls said to me that I was not smelling burnt tires. My mom eventually told me what that smell was and she just tried to convince me my smelling was off. I still put 2 and 2 together that night. In short, I was 15 years old when I found out that my dad was a huge pothead and would just smoke pot all the time in our garage. Also minus burnt tires and weed should not smell the same. I thought that pregnant was a bad word. I was the most sheltered kid ever. Now I wasn't exactly a kid, but I was under 18 so I hope it counts. So when I was about 18 I was watching TV with my parents and a drug ad comes up on the TV and then gets to the part where it tells you who shouldn't take the meds I pregnant, nursing and stuff like that. So after the ad I look at both my parents and say, well that sucks, you guys can't take those meds. My parents both very confused looked at me like, what? Why? Which I tell them, well it says you can take it if you're nursing. Both my parents are nurses and I mistook nursing from the ad that it applies to nurses. My parents had a damn good laugh over that one. Edit. I know that was pretty dumb, but funny. And that the no minors sign outside bars and taverns was there so they wouldn't get coal dust inside and flash their lights at everyone. That fat people explode when they get too fat. Bloody Mary would come through my mirror and kill me. If you turn on the light in the car while driving, you'll get arrested. My dad also made me believe there were little gnomes working in ATM and vending machines. Dad told me if the ice cream truck had its music playing, it was out of ice cream for the day. When I was younger, I thought the years would stop at 2013 and then all the years would repeat itself again. Also, I thought Oprah sang opera. I believed mothers breastfed regular milk with the right boob, and, get this, chocolate milk with the left boob. My great-uncle did a low-rent Superman cosplay for me when I was visiting at around 6 years old. And by low rent I mean blue jeans with red underwear over top, and a blue bath towel as a cape. I realized all of this several years later. At the time I was convinced it was really Superman visiting us in rural Arkansas, and I carried that surety into 2nd grade, where I got into a fight with a classmate who claimed Superman was a fictional character. I know this response is already buried, but thanks Op for asking a question that revived a cherished childhood memory. Subscribe, like and comment if you hate outros, begging you to subscribe, like and comment.